just basically end up with a random address. I think we'll need to do a little more thought to figure out which things are likely to be targets and might be worth applying this technique to. But it's a standard technique that's used to harden applications against memory corruption bugs. And I think it's time that we start asking the question of whether it's appropriate here. And we could try doing even crazier things like protecting that guest memory region by lazily mapping or protecting regions of it, or sandboxing individual devices so that they run in a thread that somehow only has a view into that specific piece of memory. And this is a topic that I've seen some discussion on the KVM lists, but that I think hopefully this work demonstrates does have potential value. And of course, I want to see more people looking at QEMU KVM and auditing it and fuzzing it and finding and fixing bugs. Some future research directions from the offensive side. I want to go after kvm.ko. I'd like to see someone else look into it because I think that there probably are bugs there and we should understand those bugs and we should fix them. Another interesting question that I don't know the answer to and I want to know the answer to is how hard, given that I know that I'm running in a guest on QEMU KVM, can I fingerprint the exact QEMU KVM version by comparing the behavior or possibly even more subtle timing attacks against the memory layout or something? Because I've been assuming that I know which QEMU KVM binary I'm running against. In the wild, you can usually assume that you're running against a distro's binary, but that's still a range of binaries. So how well can we fingerprint, which will give us an understanding of how weaponizable these attacks really, how general such exploits can be made. And then another question is, what do information leaks in QEMU KVM look like? Assuming that we get things built as fully randomized, we're going to start wanting to find information leaks to extract addresses in order to write these kinds of exploits. Is there sort of a whole class of information leaks that we haven't realized yet, or whole classes where the standard idioms that QEMU uses for communicating with devices sort of have a tendency to leak addresses in a way that we hadn't realized, analogous to Dan Rosenberg's work on the Linux kernel, where he demonstrated that as small as a 4-byte leak of uninitialized memory can reliably be used to deduce kernel addresses with a bunch of cleverness. All right, so that's sort of my immediate checklist of future work on KVM. And I also hope to improve my fuzzer and point it at other virtual machines because I haven't had a chance to do that. But for KVM, this is my checklist. And if you're interested in any of these, I encourage you to talk to me and share thoughts, whatever you have. All right, so finally, after all of that talking at you, it's time to demo my exploit in progress, in action. So. Well, that text is not relevant. I just ran a shell script that launched a KVM VM, and I hope you can read this. It's not super relevant, but so I'm booting KVM just into an Ubuntu kernel just to show that this is a working KVM virtual machine. We're in a VM. Proc CPU info shows that we're running a QEMU CPU. And the way that I've implemented this exploit is that because we are hot plugging the ISA bus, there are a lot of virtual devices that go away. And if anyone tries to use those, there's a high risk of the machine seg faulting, which is not useful if we want to exploit it. So I've actually packaged my exploit into an initrd that just contains a statically compiled version of my exploit and a minimal kernel that doesn't use any of those vulnerable devices. And I've put it in grub so that we can boot straight into the exploit and greatly increase the reliability of this attack. So we'll reboot the VM now. And from the grub prompt, we'll select my exploit. It's doing things, chasing pointers, and we pop up a calculator in the host. And obviously, as I'm sure most of you are aware, the calculator is the standard, yes, I've exploited it demo, but that could be arbitrary code. And all right, as you can see here, the guest kernel is very upset that its real-time clock has gone away, but it's valiantly stumbling forward. All right. So that is the end of this talk. The goons have told me that I shouldn't bother heading to the QA room because there's no one after me. So if you have questions, just head up here and we can chat.